What up, everybody? What up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of AC Reviews the World. I am your host, AC the Engineer, and we are at episode 142. Let's get it. 142. Hopefully, everybody had a good day today. It is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, year of our Lord. Hey, and it's another day for the greatest afternoon show in the world. Another day of the greatest afternoon show in the world. Now, just a little housekeeping. Remember, if you ever disagree with anything I say, please leave a comment. Let's have a discussion about it. I'm never going to say I'm always right. I'm never going to say I completely understand everything, but let's have a discussion. Now, remember, the best way to show your support for this is just to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you can be up to date on all the videos. Now, we meet Monday through Friday, starting around 6 o'clock, where we go over 4 different topics that just popped up on my recommendeds or my algorithm, because it'd be algorithmic. If that's not a word, but it don't matter about that. But just 4 topics that we need to review together. And today's no different than any other. So let's jump over right into it. How Future say, let's have a sensational show today, y'all. The first topic we're going to be getting into today is something it doesn't anger me. We got the Child Predator Death Penalty Act. So in Alabama, they are saying that they are now expanding the Child Predator Act, or the Child Predator death penalty to include child predators. And this is for if they assault anyone under the age of 12. We'll get over into the video, but they've been working on this. And we had a little bit of opposition, it looks like. But let's get over into the videos, of course, and then we'll go over into the AI breakdown. Let's jump over into it and see what we can find out about this whole situation. Let's jump into it.
Constitutional is now on Governor Ivey's desk. Welcome to WSFA 12 News at 6. I'm Mark Bullock.
And I'm Valerie Lawson. House Bill 41 would make certain child sex abuse crimes death penalty eligible. Alabama political correspondent Jessica Umbro joins us live outside of the State House. And Jessica, you've been covering this bill very closely. What was the biggest surprise of the day?
I think the biggest surprise was how overwhelmingly this was passed in the state Senate. When this bill was in the House, we heard a lot of concern from House Democrats saying that instead they wanted to see a mandatory life without parole sentence for these crimes. However, when it got to the Senate chamber, it passed with all but one singular no vote, one present vote. But other than that, pretty unified on passing that, both Democrats and Republicans. And while some Senate Democrats did express their own concerns about the bill, it passed pretty easily.
I think the biggest thing that it accomplishes is it shows that we have zero tolerance for sex predators who prey on our children in the state of Alabama.
House Bill 41 applies to first-degree rape, sodomy, and sexual torture cases where the victim is less than 12 years old. It would not make the death penalty a requirement, but it would be an option.
Prosecutors will look at that on a case-by-case basis. I believe there's a special place in hell for people who do this to our children, and today we're one step closer to having a special place for them in Alabama, and that's on death row in the death chamber at Holman Prison.
That's something I like to hear. Now, people who mess with kids, we talked about this before. We know they can go. We know they will go, but let's keep going.
However, the Supreme Court ruled nearly 20 years ago that the death penalty could only be used for crimes that resulted in death. A few Senate Democrats brought up that concern, saying they don't want to pass unconstitutional bills.
I'm just a little conflicted just on this particular bill when it comes to the constitutionality.
And they had other concerns, like if the bill would deter the crime or if the bill would unintentionally lead to more pressure being put on young victims.
Would this be a deterrent, knowing that, okay, now this is raised to a higher level, the death penalty? And if it's your father or your brother or uncle or whatever, and you understand that.
Democratic Senator Coleman Madison ended up being a present vote, so she was undecided. The sole no vote came from Democratic Senator Vivian Davis Figures. She said she's adamantly against the death penalty, and that was pretty much it. We really saw a lot of unification among the Republicans throughout this entire process, and with Democrats, just a few people who did not vote with the majority at the end of the day.
Now, I can understand the point where if it's a child's father or mother, or they might be hesitant to come forward because of the possibility that they could be put to death. But Some crimes deserve the most serious punishments. And I see that child predators or child molesters, anything like that dealing with children, are one of those crimes. These people do not need to be among us. At least that's my thinking. Now, tell me how you feel. Let's keep going to see if they have any.
State House, Jessica Umbro, WSFA 12 News.
Thank you, Jessica. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall released a statement after House Bill 41 passed the Senate, saying he applauds the legislature for passing the bill, and he says it sends the strongest possible message to those who look to harm young Alabama.
Now let's move over into the next video where it has passed.
Breaking news right now out of the Alabama legislature. The House of Representatives has passed the Child Predator Death Penalty Act.
This comes on the heels of an alleged sex trafficking ring that was discovered in Bibb County last year. State Capitol reporter Ryan Hall brings us the latest from Montgomery.
Republicans and Democrats in the House of Representatives debated a bill expanding the death penalty. Advocates say it will protect kids in the state, while those against it say it's unconstitutional.
That's my question. Where does the slippery slope, where does it stop?
We just fight the fight because it's a fight worth fighting, and this fight is worth fighting on a national level.
That fight, sponsored by Representative Matt Simpson, would make sexual torture, rape, and sodomy in the first degree punishable by the death penalty if the victim is less than 12 years old. If offenders are sentenced to life in prison, they would have to serve a minimum of 30 years before being considered for parole. Representative Simpson defended his bill against Democrats who argue the law has already been blocked by the Supreme Court in another case.
This is a fight we're standing up for our children. Our children are victims of the worst of the worst. You've mentioned how it's been decided as what the worst of the worst offenses have been, and we say that that stops at taking a life. I disagree.
Democrats say life without parole is a better alternative to that fight, arguing the death penalty could deter victims from coming forward if it's a loved one.
When a person goes to prison and they have that label and that tag on them that they're a child molester, it's better to let them have life because they probably won't make it.
You'll ultimately be asking the victim to put someone to death that they love. What I'm afraid of, that we might see more of these victims murdered.
Still, Simpson says 5 other states have passed an identical law.
When you take the innocence of the children, I believe in my heart that that is the worst of the worst offenses. And as it being one of the worst offenses, it deserves the worst of the worst punishments.
The bill passed in the House and now heads to the Senate for a committee vote. In Montgomery, Ryan Hall, CBS 42 News.
Now, this in itself is a wild thing to think about. Because, yes, they did mention this could lead to more victims being murdered by their predators because they don't want to get caught, and they have a more likeliness to not want the victim alive at all because of what can happen to them. Now, it's a crazy situation. Let's go over into the AI breakdown just to get a little bit more information on this whole act that they're trying to do. So the Alabama Child Predator Death Penalty Act, House Bill 41, was signed into law by Governor Cafferty on February 12, 2026. It authorizes capital punishment for individuals convicted of specific severe sexual crimes against children under the age of 12. The law will schedule to take effect October 1st, 2026. So the act expands on the definition of capital offenses to include the following crimes when the victim is under 12: first-degree rape, first-degree sodomy, first-degree sexual torture, or sexual assault. Convicted individuals not sentenced to death must serve a minimum of 30 years in prison before they are eligible for parole consideration. So the death penalty is an available option for prosecutors to seek, but is not mandatory. Now, do I think 100% that child predators and child molesters are the worst of the worst and deserve their place down under? Yes. But we have to remember the reality that it could affect the victims. So we have to, we can't just be, there are two sides to the sword, what is it called? There are two sides to the sword. I don't know how to say it, but we have to remember the fact, we have to think about the victims. Make sure that it's not putting more stress on them and it's not putting them in more danger. But let's keep going. So supporters cited a 2025 case in Bibb County where 8 individuals were arrested for the sexual torture and trafficking of at least 10 children as a primary catalyst for the legalization. The act directly challenges the 2008 U.S. Supreme Court ruling Kennedy versus Louisiana, which held the death penalty is unconstitutional for crimes that do not result in victims' death. Alabama officials have expressed intent to use the law to promote the Supreme Court to consider that precedent. Now, there's a question. Do you think that there are other laws, other crimes besides murder that could warrant the death penalty? And like I said, I do. Under if a serial child predator who has multiple victims, even if he didn't, that sounds like something that deserves the death penalty to me. But I'm open to hearing anything else, or if that's not good enough for a death penalty sentence. So the national landscape, with this law, Alabama joins a small group of states, including Florida, Tennessee, Idaho, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, that have recently enacted similar measures for child sex abuse. Now, let me know your thoughts on this situation, y'all. Do you think child predators should be put to death? Do you think it would harm the victims more or put too much stress on them if it was possible for them to be, the child predators be convicted and sentenced to death? And also, would you think that the child predators are more likely to kill the victims? There are a lot of things that we have to think about with this. We can't just look at just from the outside of it. We have to think about all aspects of it. It's a crazy situation, but this is the stuff that we need to review together, y'all. This is the stuff we need to review together. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. I am happy that people are thinking about what should be done with child predators. And is it taking up too much? Should they be relaxing, spending the rest of their lives in jail? Or not even sometimes, and most of the time, won't even be the rest of their lives. Go back and look at that last video. We got a serial child predator who was just set on parole in California. Given parole. Man was leading kids with candy. But let's pivot over into the next topic we'll get into today. And I don't know what this is all about, but it popped up. We got a killing at a senior living facility. It looks like we have someone who disguised themselves. He looks like he was a worker who ended up disguising himself, going into the senior living facility and murdering one of the residents. We'll go over into it. He has been caught, but we'll go over into the videos and, of course, the AI breakdown just to see if we can find out any more information about this case. But let's jump over into it and see what we can find out about it.
The suspect accused of shooting and killing an 87-year-old man inside a Potomac Senior Center made his first court appearance today.
Marquise James worked as a med tech at that facility. He's also accused of shooting a Maryland state trooper in Baltimore. News 4's Paul Wagner was inside the courtroom for the hearing. So, Paul, what else were you able to learn about this case?
We learned a little bit more, Sean and Mauricio. Today, in a brief court hearing, prosecutors told the judge that the killing of Robert Fuller Jr. was a cold-blooded murder and had been planned for some time. Prosecutors also said that it was a miracle that the Maryland state trooper who Marquise James is accused of shooting at escaped injury. The attorney representing James then asked for a psychiatric evaluation, and when the judge told James he'd be getting one, James replied, "Good, I'm looking forward to speaking with the doctors."
Robert Fuller Jr. was found shot.
Now, first of all, that sounds like to me, now you might feel different, it sounds like he's trying to basically beat it. He's trying to claim insanity or something like that, and let's keep going.
Once in the head inside the apartment he shared with a roommate on the 3rd floor of the Cogier Assisted Living Facility in Potomac. According to a statement of charges filed in the case, we know police interviewed Marquise James in the early days of the investigation. After Fuller's roommate told police, James handed out prescription medication the night before the murder. Based on that court document and letters sent to residents of Cogier obtained by News 4, we have built a timeline of events. Here's what we know. At 5:05 in the morning on February 14th, a subject in a mask is seen entering and leaving the building. At 7:34, James Fuller Jr. is found dead in his apartment. The same day, Cogier management sends an email to residents saying there was no ongoing threat. During the course of the investigation, police say they found a seldom used door had been propped open. The security sensor had been tampered with 36 days before the murder. Video shows Marquise James coming and going from that tampered door. And that same door leads to a stairwell 10 feet from the victim's apartment. On February 16th, the management of Cogier sends another email to residents saying this was an isolated incident and there's no ongoing threat. On February 20th, police release video of a suspect. On February 22nd, a witness tells police the suspect looks like Marquise James. On February 23rd, James is challenged by staffers. And at 1:15 in the morning that day, the staff calls police saying a stairwell door had been found propped open and the security sensor had been disarmed. The next day at 3 o'clock in the morning, police say James fires shots at a Maryland state trooper. At a news conference held yesterday at police headquarters, Captain Sean Gagan said investigators do not know the motive, but they hope to find out.
Before we get into that, you see how the senior living facility immediately said that there's no threat, but no one has been caught? They love to say that. How is there no threat, but the killer is still out there? Absolutely crazy.
Do not have a good sense of why he shot and killed Mr. Fuller. Upon speaking with him, he said their relationship was very good, and he would never have hurt Mr. Fuller. So we're hopeful that as we get further in, doing more of an investigation, we're going to get a better sense of what was going on behind the scenes, what types of communications Marquise James had, what he was searching on his electronic devices.
Now, Marquise James did have some family in the courtroom. His grandmother was there, but she left without speaking with reporters. We've also reached out repeatedly to Cogier to get some response to what happened at their facility, but so far they have not responded. That's the latest here from Rockville. Now back.
Absolutely crazy situation, y'all. What can drive someone to sneak in? He planned it for months, or at least a month. It was like, what they said, 38 days that he disabled the security camera before killing him. Let's go over to this next video and see what else we can find out.
Murder at a senior living facility and an attempted killing of a Maryland state trooper. Both crimes just days apart, and police say committed by this same man. Good evening, I'm Josh Chapin. Scott is on assignment tonight. Right now on your screen is Marquise James. He is accused of shooting and killing millionaire philanthropist Robert Fuller at a senior living facility in Potomac on Valentine's Day. Our Brad Bell joining us live with new details released today. Brad, police say a traffic ticket helped them track down their suspect here.
Yeah, that's right, because the guy had a pre-scheduled court date and he actually showed up for it when they were looking for him, and they were able to make the arrest. Look, this was a crime nobody could really understand. Who would shoot an 87-year-old man in his bed, in his room, at his assisted living facility? And as you said, police now say they know who it was, and it was somebody whose job it was to care for the victim. 87-year-old Robert Fuller was found murdered inside his apartment at the Cogier Assisted Living Facility in Potomac, Maryland on Valentine's Day. It was a stunning place for such a crime and the unlikeliest of victims. Fuller moved here after a long and successful career as an attorney in Maine. He was known as a philanthropist, and he was a self-published author of a murder mystery still listed on Amazon. His own death now became a tragic real-life mystery. The first clue released publicly, this video of a suspect at the assisted living building. Quietly, Montgomery County detectives narrowed in on a person. Well, then, early Tuesday morning, Maryland State Police reported that someone shot at a trooper in Baltimore during a traffic stop. They released these images of the person and a car. And when a shell casing from that shooting matched the gun used in the assisted living murder, the two agencies realized they were looking for the same person, 22-year-old Marquise James of Baltimore, an employee of the assisted living facility, who in a final twist to this sad real-life murder mystery was actually arrested Tuesday when he showed up for a court date on a completely unrelated traffic charge.
We completely understood the panic and the fear that the death of Mr. Fuller, the murder of Mr. Fuller, brought out in that community. We took this very, very seriously. The investigators, as I said, have worked incredibly hard. Long days, long nights, time away from their family, because they knew the importance of bringing or identifying a suspect in this case as quickly as they possibly could.
Yeah, so police now say they know who. What they don't yet know is why, what the motive may have been in this case. But there is another twist to this story, and it is chilling. Police are saying that it is possible that they interrupted another potential crime, because over the last several days, as they were watching Mr. James and security video at the assisted living facility, they spotted him acting mysteriously and actually propping open the door that should have been locked and tampering with a security sensor, flipping the battery around so it was not operable. He's now charged with first-degree murder here and will be charged with attempted first-degree murder in Baltimore, being held without bond. He'll have a bond review hearing in Rockville tomorrow. In Gaithersburg, Brad Bell, 7 News.
So it's a little bit conflicting. I don't know if did he use that same door to kill him in the first place? And was he going back to do it again? Or going back to kill someone else? I don't know if we'll ever get a motive for it. Might have been something. I mean, he just sounds like a true crash out. They said he shot at the police during a traffic stop. And then for a totally different reason, or a traffic violation, he went to the court to get it handled. Some people are evil monsters who are stupid. We gotta remember that. Let's go over into the AI breakdown just to see if we get anything else from this whole situation. So as we know in, let's go up. So 22-year-old Marquise has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the shooting of 87-year-old Robert at the senior living facility on Valentine's Day 2026. The victim was a retired attorney and a well-known millionaire philanthropist, originally from Maine. He was found unresponsive in his bed with a contact gunshot wound to the head. James was a licensed medical technician at the facility responsible for administering medication to the residents, including the victim. Prosecutors allege James plotted the murder for at least a month. Surveillance footage from January showed him tampering with a solemnly used door. In the morning of the murder, the door was found propped open with a napkin, and the alarm sensor was disabled. So James was apprehended on February 24th in Rockville after a briefly foot chase. Earlier the same morning, he allegedly shot at a victim, Maryland trooper, during a traffic stop. Ballistic testing matches the shell casing found. So there's a little conflicting stuff, because they said after a brief foot chase, was he not caught at the courthouse? See, you got to remember to do your own research, y'all. Do your own research. Let's see. James faced charges of the first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, a felony assault, and the use of a firearm in the crime of violence. He is currently being held without bond at the Montgomery County. During a recent hearing, a judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation for him. As of early March 2026, police have not identified a clear motive for the killings. So recent court proceedings and police investigation as of March 3rd have revealed several new details regarding the cold-blooded murder. So during the searches of Marquis' residence, and detectives recovered multiple wigs and masks. Prosecutors noted that the surveillance video from the night of the murder showed a person wearing a mask and a wig. On the night before the body was found, James allegedly administered Fuller's medication as usual, but returned later to ask if the meds had kicked in yet. which the victim's roommate described as highly unusual. Even after the murder, James reportedly continued to show up at the facility during hours. He wasn't scheduled to work and was seen acting strangely. A 9mm shell was recovered from the scene where the state trooper was shot that matched the gun that killed Fuller. When James was arrested, ammunition was found rolling all over the floorboards from his silver Infinity. Investigators believe James spent over a month planning the attack, like we know. Despite the evidence, James reportedly told detectives during the interview that he liked Mr. Fuller and claimed that the relationship was good. Police confirmed that nothing was stolen from the apartment. During his bond hearing, James reportedly told the judge, "I want to talk to the doctor. I would love that," in response to the order of the psychiatric evaluation. A follow-up hearing resulted in is expected within the first week of March, so it's expected soon. It's a tragic situation. There's a lot of things that you never know when stuff like this can happen. This man was just living his time in his senior facility, enjoying his retirement, getting his medication, and then out of nowhere, someone kills him. Now, we don't know the motives. We don't know if he had some kind of vendetta against him. We don't know if he was just an angry person, if he just liked to kill somebody. It's a tragic situation. We got to pray for the family. And hey, at the end of the day, he needs to be held responsible for his actions and put in the jail. Crazy situation, y'all. Let me know your thoughts on that situation. Let me know if you disagree with anything I say. That whole statement about him being like, "Oh, I'm looking forward. I would love to talk to the doctor." Because for the psychiatric evaluation, that just sounds like he's trying to use a mental health diagnosis to get up out of this whole thing. But what are your thoughts, y'all? What are your thoughts? Like I said, let me know if you disagree with anything I said. Crazy situation. But we're going to pivot over into the third topic where we go over into a sentencing we've been waiting for. So we got Colin Gray has been found guilty. Now, if you don't remember who Colin Gray is the father of the school shooter that happened at the Appalachian High School. He is being charged with the murder because he basically gave his son a gun when he was already apparently very, you can say crazy, you can say mentally ill, but he idolized school shooters, and he ended up giving his son a gun. And then what did his son go do? Ended up shooting up a school. So we'll get over into him being found guilty, and of course we'll go over to the AI breakdown just to get a little bit more information and see if we missed anything. But let's jump over into it and see what we can find out.
Second degree, we jury find we the jury for CR-593-P jury verdict. Count 1, murder in the second degree. We the jury find the defendant guilty. Count 2, cruelty to children in the second degree. We the jury find the defendant guilty. Count 3, murder in the second degree. We the jury find the defendant guilty. Count 4, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 5, involuntary manslaughter, unfaithful act. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 6, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 7, involuntary manslaughter, unlawful act. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 8, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 10, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 11, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 12, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 13, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 14, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 15, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 16, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 17, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 18, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 19, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 20, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 22, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 23, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 24, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 25, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 26, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 27, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 28, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 29, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. This third day of March 2026, signed for person.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Counsel, do we need to... Absolutely. All counts. Let's go over to the next video.
Breaking news out of Georgia. This has just happened in the last hour or so. The father of an alleged school shooter has been found guilty of second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. Colin Gray's son, Colt Gray, is accused of opening fire at Appalachia High School in 2024, killing 2 students and 2 teachers and injuring 9 others. His father was accused of providing his teenage son access to that firearm used to carry out the shooting. Well, this marks the second school shooting now where a parent has been held criminally responsible for their child's actions. You may remember in 2024, James and Jennifer Crumbley were both found guilty of involuntary manslaughter for a mass shooting committed by their son Ethan at Oxford High School. That was in Michigan. Let's bring in NBC's Aaron Gilchrist. He has been watching this verdict unfold. Aaron, tell us more.
Now, before we get into that, let me say something. I'm 100% fine with the parents being charged in something like this. Why? Because especially if they knew that their son had problems, they didn't enforce stopping the problems, and they basically enabled it to happen or just let it happen. They need to be charged with the crime. It makes sense to me. But let me know if you disagree with that, or if you think the parents shouldn't be charged because of what their kids are doing, especially in this kind of case. But let's keep going into this video.
Well, Savannah, you note that the fact that this is a parent who's being held responsible for the alleged crimes of his child, and this sort of takes it up another level because in the Crumbley case, we were talking about involuntary manslaughter. In this case, we're talking about second-degree murder charges. Colin Gray was found guilty on 2 counts of second-degree murder for the 2 students who were killed in that school shooting at Appalachia High School back in 2024. And this case is sort of unique because there were also charges of cruelty to children. And in order to convict on that second-degree murder charge, you had to convict on the cruelty to children charge in this case. And really the narrative that prosecutors used as the sort of umbrella narrative in their presentation over the course of 2 weeks and 60-plus witnesses was that because Colin Gray gave his son a weapon or gave him access to a weapon that he knew could be used to hurt people, and that he knew his son had exhibited signs over the years, warning signs, if you will, over the years that he could harm someone. In giving him the weapon, despite knowing that information, he was guilty of cruelty to children. There were, I think, 18 counts of cruelty to children, to include students, other students who were shot but not killed, to include students who were in the classroom where the shooting happened and traumatized by it. Many of them testified in the early days of this trial about the trauma that they experienced, about the injuries that they had. And so all those counts combined together really helped the prosecution to create a picture for this jury that it took them less than 2 hours to make a decision about. They were able to ask for, the jury actually asked to get the case last night. There were some technical things, some legal things that prevented that from happening. They got it just after 9 o'clock this morning. And again, in less than 2 hours, the jury came back with a verdict of guilty on all 27 charges that were against this father. And I think it's also worth pointing out, in this particular case, the prosecutors came out afterwards and said that it was really the multitude of warnings that this father got that the jury really zeroed in on and led them to the decision that they ultimately made today, Savannah.
100%. Now, remember, y'all, now, if you go back and look at some of the details of this case, the police gave him multiple warnings about his son, saying his son, he needs to watch his son, basically. In layman's terms, he needs to watch his son. And what did he do? Even though his son idolized a school shooter and thought about this kinds of stuff, he paid and bought for him a gun. Basically, like a sign to his son, I'm assuming, just to go wild. But the son, we're still waiting for the son to go to court now. But this is a crazy situation, y'all.
Maybe something we continue to see more of as a essentially second of its kind case convicts a parent. Aaron Gilchrist, thank you very much.
Hopefully more, yes. If parents are not responsible in how they raise their children, yes, more need to be charged. I believe that a big part of how a child turns out is how their parents raise them, or how they instill rules and values into them. Now, is it 100% the case on the parents? No. A lot of it has to do with the child themselves. But parents play a big role. I would say probably 80-20. Now, let me know your thoughts. Let's go over into the AI breakdown just so we can get a little bit more information about this whole thing. So let's jump over into it. So on March 3rd, a jury found Colin Gray guilty on all charges related to the 2024 mass shooting at the Appalachian High School carried out by his son, Colt Gray. The jury in Georgia deliberated for less than 2 hours before coming back, convicting the 55-year-old of 27 counts, 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 18 counts of second-degree cruelty to children, 5 counts of reckless conduct. So prosecution argued that Colin Gray was criminally responsible for the deaths of the students, both 14 years old, and the teachers. The key evidence during the 2 weeks trial included, so we had the providing a weapon. So Gray admitted to buying his son an AR-style rifle as a Christmas gift in 2023, despite being aware of the teen's mental health and previous FBI questioning regarding online threats. How do you do something as stupid as buying your kid a gun when he has made threats online and he has mental health issues? But this is why he is charged. So prosecutors highlighted that Gray knew his son was obsessed with the school shooters and kept a shrine to the Parkland school shooter in his bedroom. Yeah, you got to go away. Gray's daughter testified against him, and Gray himself took the stand, claiming to had no idea his son was capable of such violence, intended the rifle for supervised hunting. He had a shrine to a school shooter, but you didn't think he was capable of the violence? Okay, I mean, I guess every man is entitled to say how he feels. Colin Gray was escorted from the courtroom in handcuffs and will be sentenced at a later date. He faces the potential sentence of 10 to 30 years in prison for each second-degree murder charge. So at the minimum, he has to get 20 years. And then 1 to 10 in prison for the involuntary manslaughter charges. So let's go back over into that. So It's possible he gets 22 years for this. That's at the very minimum. Is that enough time? Let me know. The verdict marks the first time in Georgia history that a parent has been held criminally liable for a school shooting committed by their child. It follows a landmarking case in Michigan back in 2024. Now that goes to show, let me know your thoughts, y'all. Do you think a parent should be held liable for their children? You know how I feel, yes. Especially if they knew about the stuff that were happening and they just let it happen. You have to take some responsibility. You brought him into this world. You were supposed to guide him. You're responsible for him, especially if he's a child. But like, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Let me know your thoughts, y'all. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. But he has been found guilty on all counts, and he will most likely spend the next 22 years in jail. All because he didn't stop his son. Crazy situation, y'all. Like I said, let me know your thoughts. We're going to pivot over into the last topic we're going to be discussing today. And we got to go into this next one. It's a simple question I'm going to ask you during this. Is it self-defense or is it murder? As simple as that. Is it self-defense or murder? We got a woman who was pregnant at the time. And yes, she was getting beaten on by her. It sounds like she was getting beaten on by her boyfriend. Now, some reports are saying that after the family broke it up, she went back in there and stabbed him with a knife. And then you got other reports saying that during the family couldn't break it up, and then she ended up stabbing him with a knife to get him off of her. We'll go over to it. We got 2 videos to look at, and of course the AI breakdown. But let's see. Remember, y'all, is it murder or is it self-defense? That's the question. The prosecutors are already saying they didn't drop the charges. So let's go over into it and see what we can find out about this whole situation. But let's jump over into it. See what we can find out.
A woman who was charged 4 years ago with killing the man who fathered her baby may get the charges dropped.
Saquon is live this morning with the newest, biggest developments in the case that we're expecting to see today. Good morning, Say.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, this is a case that actually goes back to 2022, as you mentioned, when Kashia Golden, who was pregnant at the time, fatally stabbed her then boyfriend during an argument that turned violent. Golden is facing first-degree murder charges in the death of her then boyfriend, Kelvin Sidney. She was originally held on a $2 million bond. That amount was later dropped to $50,000, requiring Golden to pay $5,000 of it. The Chicago Community Bond Fund, which posts bond on behalf of people who can't afford to pay, provided that $5,000 bond required to get her out of jail, which her attorneys and judges at the time agreed was in the best interest of her unborn child. According to Golden's attorney, Sidney had dragged Golden by her hair, and she was forced to stab him in the leg when family members couldn't pull them apart during their argument. Her attorney says Golden acted in self-defense to protect her and her unborn baby, not knowing she hit an artery in Sidney's leg. Her attorney adds that Golden had previously miscarried after she was physically abused by Sidney. Police also tell us there have been over 50 calls made from the couple's home to report abuse. 5 of them were reported between June and September of 2022. And in 4 of those calls, Golden claimed Sidney had choked, punched, slapped, or pushed her. Today, her attorneys will be back here at Layton Criminal Courthouse seeking to dismiss any charges against her, really putting that self-defense at the center of that argument. Her attorney is set to appear in court in a little less than an hour now at 10 o'clock this morning.
Now, let me say something. Let's go back to the little stats they gave. So we got 50 calls that were made to the police to report abuse. And then 5 of them between June and September were 5 domestic violence calls. And then they said 4 of them were accused of the boyfriend choking and punching and slapping her. Now, I would like to know if they were all, because they only mentioned 4. So was she also swinging at him and they called the police? Or was it only him being the violent aggressor? That is something that we need to know. But let's go over into this next video where the prosecution denied.
And the
The Cook County State's Attorney's Office declined to dismiss Keisha Golden's first-degree murder charge, instead offering her a lesser charge of second-degree murder, something her lawyers say they are not happy about. Golden's attorneys from the Cook County Public Defender's Office argue that Golden, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, was defending herself during an argument. It happened back in 2022. Golden's lawyers say her then-boyfriend, Calvin Sidney, attacked her. Prosecutors say family members separated them, after which Golden allegedly went into their bedroom and stabbed Sidney in the leg, killing him. Golden's lawyers argue that Sidney was abusive and that more than 50 domestic violence calls were made from the couple's home.
We are asking that a woman whose only crime was to fight for her life and the life of her unborn child be dismissed. She has done everything over the past 3 years that they have asked. She has done counseling. She has done classes. She has reported every single day to pretrial services. What more do they want from this woman?
That offer comes with 24 months of probation, but that felony conviction would remain on Golden's record. Her attorneys say they will continue to fight this. There is another hearing scheduled for this case in early April. Reporting live.
Now, y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard how they said that the prosecution claims that the fighting was broken up. And then she went into the bedroom after him, and that's when she stabbed him. If that's the case, I don't know if you can call that self-defense, because it has to be an immediate act. But let's go over to the AI breakdown just to get a little bit more information and see if we missed anything. So let's jump over into that. So as we know, Miss Golden, a Chicago woman, is currently facing first-degree murder charges in a 2022 fatal stabbing of her boyfriend, 29-year-old Calvin. The case is currently ongoing as of late February. Golden's legal team and various advocacy groups pleading for the Cook County State's Attorney Office to drop the charge, arguing that it was an act of self-defense. So the incident overview. So we know it happened on October 23rd, 2022. The stabbing occurred hours after a baby shower for the couple's unborn child. Prosecutors alleged the fight began over who would use the mic. Sorry. The fight started over who would use the microwave first. Golden allegedly stabbed Sidney once in the thigh, severing his femoral artery. He later died at Mount Sinai Hospital. At the time of the incident, Golden was 8 months pregnant. So, public defenders argued that Sidney had a long history of physical abuse against Golden, and Golden had reportedly called the police over 50 times to report the abuse and had an active order of protection against him at the time of his death. So why was he at the baby shower? Why was you having him at the baby shower? Some women, we got to be honest, some women, even though they file an order of protection, they won't live by it, or but it's possible he just came there and just showed up without permission. But it's also possible that they were having a baby shower together. But so we got advocacy groups like She Votes Illinois and Moms United Chicago have campaigned for her freedom, characterizing her as a survivor of intimate partner violence who was protecting herself and her child. Initially held on $2 million bail, it was later reduced, allowing her to give birth and raise her daughter while awaiting trial. So as of February 2026, Golden is preparing for trial. Her lawyers continue to seek an outright dismissal of the case from the state attorney, though prosecutors have previously stated that they have no intention of dropping the murder charge. Now, the main question that would prove that if this is self-defense or not, is if the family truly broke it up before they stabbed her, Because if they broke it up and he went away and she went somewhere else and then she followed him into the bedroom, I don't know if you can call that self-defense. We don't know exactly what happened in the bedroom, if he struck her or something like that. But I know you can't claim that as self-defense. But if it did happen where she was getting choked out and the family couldn't break her up and she truly feared for her life and stabbed him, okay, I can 100% go with her getting a self-defense and getting this case dismissed. But the real question is, I still want to know, why was they, because hold on, where is this at? Why were they at a baby shower together? So the stabbing occurred hours after the baby shower for the couple's unborn child. She had an order of protection against him, but he was at the baby shower? I would like to know if he just broke in or if she invited him. It's a crazy situation, y'all. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know, do you think it's self-defense or you think it's murder? Or are you like me and need more information? It's a crazy situation, y'all. It's a crazy situation. But this is the type of stuff we have to review together, y'all. We have to review this world together. Self-defense or murder? What is it? But that is it for the show today. We talked about a lot of crazy things, like always. We went over 4 crazy topics that we need to talk about. We need to discuss and just see how we feel about this stuff. Now, remember, the best way to show your support is just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you can be up to date on all the videos. But y'all, thank y'all for watching now. Thank you for watching later. That's all I ask is y'all for y'all support. Now, remember, these videos will be broken down so you can go and watch the one you want to. But remember, if you ever have anything you want me to review, or if you ever disagree with anything I say, leave a comment. But you can also send any videos you want me to review to my email. It's acreviewstheworld@gmail.com. It's a dot after the A and a dot after the Z. But that's it for now, y'all. Y'all already know I got to play that outro. Peace.